online gatherings to help with comms, online and social media for those who are in some form of responsibility for that within their church or association. This month in May, it is a first Friday. I kept nearly saying this first Friday, Thursday, like we had in April. But on this first Friday, we will be looking at social media sort of at beginner's level. So for those of you who don't know, it is hosted by Mike Lowe and myself. So we do comms and social media and digital in Mike is the National Communications Manager for Baptist Together, and I am a digital missioner and comms consultant working with various different people and organisations across the country. If you don't know about First Fridays already, you can find out more at baptist.org.uk/First Friday. We'll do the first half an hour of Mike and I talking, and then we will do conversation afterwards, which won't be recorded. So we do recommend that you come and watch us or come and join us live, but it's recorded so that you can watch it afterwards. Please do, for those of you who are with us today, use the chat function, but also if you're watching afterwards, please do get in touch with us. And any handouts and the slides or anything that we talk about will be emailed afterwards along with the recording. So let's get into social media for beginners. Over to you, Mike.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, when Hannah and I sort of chatted about what we're going to talk about today, it's actually quite hard to work out where to sort of start with something like this, because people's sort of understanding and ability with social media varies massively. And you may be really familiar with Facebook, but you've not got a clue what TikTok is, or perhaps you've started to dabble with it and you don't like it personally, but you sort of think, well, how could I use this for sort of churches? So Hannah and I sort of had a thought about where we would start, and pretty much with any sort of, I think, communication, starting off with the golden circle of why, how, and what is always a great way to sort of approach any sort of strategy or any sort of project. And I think social media, we can apply this. And I think starting at the why would you be interested in doing social media from your context point of view, whatever that is, maybe in a pioneer perspective, a traditional church, why would you be interested in using social media? And we know that it's a phenomena that's been around for around about 20 years now, in some degree in its sort of current form, and it's clearly a very important form of digital communication. But ultimately, why would you be wanting to use that? I think at one end of things, it's simply a means of sort of sharing. It's a form of evangelism, and it can be just as simple as sharing a post or saying you're going to church to celebrate, as you know, we've said it's coronation weekend. As we're doing this, we're going to do something at our church for the coronation. To actually, as Hannah's been looking into, and as others are looking into, what does actual mission look like in a digital space? And so it's a really exciting emerging area. But no matter wherever you're starting from, asking why you need to get, and your church needs to get involved in social media, I think we can start to look at some simple questions. One of the things I suppose in some respects you have to be mindful of with social media is that you are obviously sharing details and things like that. Some of those things, as we've got there on the slide, that internal communication, you probably wouldn't be sharing a great deal publicly on social media. Clearly, for some social medias, you can set up private Facebook groups, and with permission from people, you could go into more detail. But I think where Hannah and I are probably going to focus more on is that interacting with other people who may be in your locality, people who you want to ultimately spread the good news of Jesus with in lots of different ways. And so we have to put our sort of external communication hat on, particularly with those who are not coming to church, who are perhaps not Christian, have not engaged at all. We are very much dealing sort of on the front line with the people in our locality who may know nothing. And so in some respects, getting into the right frame of mind in terms of the language that you use, the approach that you take is going to be really important with that. And some of the earlier First Fridays that we went through earlier on this year, very much the first one actually in January, we looked at sort of how you set up and think about comms in your coming year. And then when Ben Lucas came in March, he was talking about how you listen well in your community. A really good place is to think about why you would be starting social media, and then who are your audience locally? Where are they? What are the things that people are engaged with locally, so that you can sort of arrive and communicate in a social media space in a way that hopefully people will engage with. And so ultimately, I think this why is about saying, as a church, whatever your vision is, however you want to go forward and take the Great Commission forward in your context and tell people about Jesus and what you're doing. That's your ultimate why. And then I think you then work through some of those details with that. A very simple why could be, I mean, we're recording during Coronation Weekend. Some of these things could be very practical. It could be why you want to set up social media, because you want to tell people about particular things that you are doing at your church, which you think has got broad community appeal. And in which case, yeah, there are simple ways, which we will go through in terms of how you would do that. And so that's a good segue into that next bit, which Hannah's going to sort of take forward on a little bit of some of those how questions for us.
Yeah, so once you've sort of thought about the whys and what's your intention, and yeah, as Mike said, sort of your audience and what are you wanting to do, and all of that can be done before you even think about what platform you want to go on or need to go on. So having thought about and even doing sort of a very basic comms plan, which really should be done before sort of trying to dive into a platform, is actually then going, right, okay, so with the audience we want to reach are on this platform. What platform are we on? What are we currently using? You know, what have we got the resources to do? But then thinking, actually, what platforms do we want to use? So if actually we're in quite a younger generation, or we've got a lot of, say there's a new development estate happening, so there's a lot of younger families coming in, the likelihood is that a lot of them are not really going to be using Facebook that actively. So perhaps Instagram is more of the platform to be using. And so understanding the difference between the different platforms, their audiences and their best use. So actually assessing, what are you currently on? What's gone well with that? What's not gone well with that? Are they effective? Actually, you may use Facebook and you may have the estate near you, and okay, there may be younger people, but actually you have a very vibrant and active Facebook presence, and there's loads of people engaging with that. And if that's working, that's brilliant. Don't like try to change it just because it's you feel that you should be somewhere else. But if it's not working, perhaps somewhere else is worth trying. So what platforms do you want to use? Well, okay, can we think about using, I'm going to make examples, but please don't like take this is the way that you have to do it. But should we be trying Instagram? Actually, how can we utilize that platform for the audiences that we want to reach, or even our current church family? Is it worth trying something new to be creative, to try a new expression, but also actually, is that where your audiences are, and can we get people to help us to do that? It sounds very jumping the gun slightly, but even if you aren't planning on using a platform, it is a really good idea to go into the platforms, register your church name, so like get the handle, even if you're not going to use it straight away. So it's better if all of your handles are the same. So at the Hallelujah Church London, hypothetically, you know, if your handle is the same across all platforms, it makes it easier for people to find you. If you go onto a new platform, it's easier for people to tag you, because on Facebook we're the Hallelujah Church.london.uk, or on Instagram we're at the Hal CHC LDN, and if it's just then it gets very complicated. I've had it before where I can't even remember it, and I'm the one managing those accounts. So, you know, even if you're not on Instagram yet, or even if you're not on TikTok yet, go into them, register, and then you don't have to touch them again. You don't have to do anything, but at least that you've got those handles. It just, if then when you want to explore it, you're not sort of trying to go, oh, how can we get the closest thing? And then think about, like, what will you share? So again, if like within reflecting upon your comms plan, upon who your current audience is, what do they want to see? What are the questions that they're asking? What are the tools and resources that you've got? So actually, if you've got a lot of younger people in your congregation, or you've got sort of a group or even an individual who is passionate about photography, actually, could they help to create content for Instagram so that it's not all just graphics and sort of pictures of posters, but actually it's someone who's really passionate about photography, takes brilliant photos? Could this be a celebration of your community? And, you know, you have an Instagram account where the church is really highlighting different things and different people within your community, because this person has been gifted in photography that can be then shared on what is a very visual platform. So, you know, think about that, and whether it will be organic content, which means that that is stuff that you have created, so that is organically yours. So that could be Bob taking photos, and that could be videos that maybe someone else is gifted in videography. So you could create testimony videos throughout the year. You could have sermons or prayers. Someone could be like an incredibly gifted poetry, like prayer poetry writer, and they just write poems that can be shared out in different forms. So that's your own content, you own that. Or you could share curated content, which is found from other creators. So that could be linking to organizations such as the BU, other mission partners, you know, BMS, or sharing from Bible Society or things like that. So that's not your content, but you're sharing that, and that can be as equally as powerful. And actually it can be quite good if you're maybe don't have the resources or the time or the ability to create something that they've done. So one thing that in my past we found really good, so Di Woolridge, who is a spoken word poet, incredible performer, he created a video a few years ago about Christmas and how it was different and how it was a mess. The sort of the theme of it was mess to message and Messiah. It was an incredibly moving video, and we shared it out loads because we couldn't create anything that was on that scale, but it was an amazing resource for us to share out, and really helped for us to drive traffic to either our page or our website, because we were sort of piggybacking off that within the sermon series that we were doing then throughout Christmas. So thinking about organic and curated, and you can do a mix of both, a little bit more of some or a little bit more of the other, but also thinking then about the different forms of the content. So as I've said, you could do photography, you could do videography, you could have short or long form text, you share links, and it's really good to mix it up. Obviously a platform like Instagram doesn't like that, but Facebook does. You can do on Twitter, or TikTok's more is video sort of focused. So understanding the platform and actually the options that you've got, but also making sure that it's not just every week on your Facebook page, you're not just sharing, here's the link to the Sunday service to YouTube, here's the link to the Sunday service to YouTube, here's the link to the Sunday service to YouTube, because actually that is not the most inspiring to look at all the time. So again, mixing it up is really helpful. especially on a platform like Facebook, where they do offer that you've got so many options of different things to do. And then thinking about how often you'll be posting. So if it is just you on your own and you already have a full-time job or a part-time job alongside serving in various different forms of ministry within your church, you do not want to be expecting yourself to commit to, posting every single day on 4 different platforms, and creating a weekly video of some whizzy news what's going on in the church, because to be honest, that is unfeasible. You might be able to do it for 1 week and then you just won't be able to. It's not practical, sustainable, or healthy for you to have to feel that, like, commit to that investment. Again, it's better to post a couple times a week on a platform, but also, again, mixing up. And that's where sort of having curated content can be really helpful, because you're not having to do all the legwork in the creating. But in a way, it's better to undercommit, especially as you're starting out, of going, right, I just want to post 3 times a week on Facebook, and these are the different things that we'll be posting, rather than going, I'm going to post 3 times a day, and that only lasts for a few days. So try to be reasonable, but kind of undercommit and then grow from there. It's also really important to make sure your church knows, what platforms that you're on, so that, please do like and share the content that we're doing. There's no excuse for the church, someone in your church family, to say, well, I didn't know you were on Facebook, when they're a very active Facebook poster. There's no excuse that your church family shouldn't be cheering and supporting the content that goes out. Get them involved in creating content. So say, actually, it's coming up to the summer holidays, we're a tourist town. Could we say to people, here is a list of our favourite spots across the town to go for breakfast, lunch, visit with the family? What a wonderful thing to welcome, visitors to your area with. To get your church involved. Plus, also, then you're not actually having to find that content, because you're getting the church to do the heavy work in that. Can they share pictures? Can they submit pictures that can be shared, so that you're not having to spend time taking photos of various things in your church throughout the year or stuff like that? Can you say to them, actually, what's some resources, what's some worship songs that you're really liking at the moment that we can share out? So use them to create content, to gather content, and also share content. So if you've got something exciting happening this weekend, or Christmas activities, or you've got a summer celebration or something, say, please do like, share, and invite people to it through social media, because it is a wonderful endorsement if there is seen to be, right from an analytics level and also a kind of sociological level, or human, the way that we're sort of, if we see lots of people liking and sharing this, actually, that you feel like, oh, maybe this is something worth going to, rather than just oh, no one's actually liked it, or no one's said they're attending the event on Facebook. I don't know if I really want to go to it. So get your church involved, tell them, and also tell them why it's important. So again, this is then why this bits that Mike's just spoken about, why it's important. This is why we're doing it. We're doing it to reach our community. We're doing it to strengthen our relationships within the church. Tell them that. I call myself a digital missioner, but I think everyone can be a digital missioner, and it's we've had such a powerful opportunity and responsibility to use digital in sharing the gospel. And so make sure that people know that that's what they should be doing. But also, could it be a spark for someone to try something new, a new ministry, that they could then sort of take ownership and responsibility of that? Screen envy can be a real thing, and it is really hard. If you were with us for our last month's one, talking sort of about mental well-being, it can be really hard to not kind of look at what other people are doing and going, oh, I wish we could make videos like that, or I wish our services looked all smokes and fancy lights, and I wish we had a band like that, and whatever. Because you can see it online, it's so much easier to have that kind of envy. I'm guilty of it so often, whether it's about what people are creating, what their lifestyles look like and stuff. And that needs to be sort of that not happen, but do look at what others are creating, what others are doing, what others are sharing, to see actually could we take inspiration from this. So if there's local creators, so whether that's businesses or nearby churches or charities, what are they doing to engage their community? But also look nationally, get inspiration from people. There's nothing wrong with getting inspiration as long as we're not copying sort of everything verbatim or getting kind of depressed because we can't do it like that. We shouldn't be trying to do it like that. So yeah, just take encouragement from it. Then thinking about what platforms to use. So the most important thing that you should be doing is having a website. That is your land. No one can take that away from you. If Facebook goes down, if Twitter or Instagram or WhatsApp goes down, that's annoying. But there are very few things where your website, well, there are things that can happen that can make your website go down, but you own that land. No one can control what and how goes on there. Make sure you keep everything up to date. Have up-to-date photos of team leaders, your church family. Actually let people know what they're likely to who they're likely to meet if they come to church, and sort of like what they're likely to see when if they come and join either a service or an event or something. Your website doesn't need to be overcomplicated. You don't need to have loads and loads of pages and sort of feel you have to have everything. Have some pictures of leadership, your church, the building, what times things are on. So what time are your services, if you've got multiple services or just one? Are there any other activities? And then a couple of kind of like frequently asked questions like, what's parking like? Disability access, are there rooms for hire? Or what goes on else during the week? It's the kind of the things that people are likely to ask. But sort of try not to get overwhelmed with going, we have to have like loads, like telling everyone about what we believe as Baptists, because actually you could link just to the Baptist Union website, or actually is everything that we've done for this has been the building project for the last 100 years. If it's going to be time and effort and difficult to maintain of like keeping that sort of content up, don't do it. Just keep it as simple as possible, so that it is as simple and as easy as possible to manage. Emails are also a really important thing to have. And again, as Mike sort of said about like language and who you're talking to, of thinking, well, are we having an internal email list that maybe is available to anyone to join, but actually it's be quite kind of like informal language, because it's going to be sharing it's essentially the newsletter? Or will it be sort of external of like, we want this to go to the counsellors, we want this to go to businesses, we want this to go to anyone who's sort of mildly interested in what we're doing, but it's at least it shares it out. And you could have one, the other, or both. But an email list is really powerful, because again, no one can take that away from you if something happens. And yeah, it's a great way for people to get to know you and really feel like they know what's going on, because again, it can be hard to have that sort of conversation on a website, or it can be hard to maintain that language on social media. But an email, so a website and emails are kind of the first things that you should be thinking about, even though they're not really social as such. Then for the first few to try, Facebook is probably where the majority of people are on. So that would and you need a profile to have it. I'm guessing most of you kind of are familiar with this, but you obviously need a profile to register on Facebook. And then a church could have either a page or a group. And I'd recommend a page in the first instance, because a page is that sort of public facing, the front of the house, where you go, right, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. We'd love for you as community, people who've not really come to church before, please do, come along and see this. Then you can have groups as well, where it can be like, oh, has anyone got some bunting for this weekend? We're really short on this. And it's more this sort of, that internal conversation. But equally, you could have something like 200 groups per page. I'm not recommending that. Don't do that. That sounds horrible and quite a nightmare to manage. But you could have a kind of like church family closed group. You could have those in the community. You could have people with certain interests, so that people who maybe come to church a few times, but they're really passionate about eco and gardening, that they can try, they can have a chance of conversing where maybe they wouldn't get to meet those people in a sort of normal Sunday on-site Sunday service. Anyway, I'm not going to get diverted with that because we'll talk about that in the next session. And Facebook, yeah, really offers you the most amount of things to do. It's got so many different features and options within the whole of the platform. Instagram is more visual, so it is really, the focus should be on good quality visual content, whether that is sort of static photos or videos. So it's either be sort of posts or reels, but also engaging with the stories feature that allows you to kind of share those, maybe not the quite as nice photos, but the sort of the setting up of the coronation, the garden party that we're having at church. This is sort of, here's a sneak peek at some of the cakes, and here's sort of the here's the quiche ingredients, and we've forgotten the important word. Here's quiche ingredients from various people within the church because they're going to be making it, and then you show the nice picture of the quiche in the feed, but that the stories is an amazing way of, again, building that relationship. You're showing the behind the scenes, you're showing that church people are just normal. You know, we're normal people. We're just, because we're part of this family doesn't mean that we're sort of in any way different or better. You would show a lot more of that kind of vulnerability in a visual way, rather than maybe putting it up on and you know, bad photos. You don't really want that on your feed, but you can put the sort of the not as nice quality photos in stories. Anyway, and then YouTube, again, really important. It's not so much social, but it allows you to build that relationship, to share content. You can have comments and the chats if you're doing lives, but YouTube is the second biggest search engine, and I should know the stats of like how many people are going to it to ask questions. It's an amazing way to answer the questions that people are asking, like, why does bad stuff happen? Does God love me? I'm depressed, I'm struggling, how do I cope through grief? Those are questions that people will be asking, and not that we have the full answer, but we have a part of an answer, or sort of, you know, an opportunity of a solution that we should be sharing, because those questions are being answered in sermons and in conversations and in house groups. So we should be sharing content to share that out. Is this me? I think this is me again. Sorry, I feel like I've spoken so much of this session now. Michael speak in a second. So, and it's really hard for me not to go into more detail of either my excitement, but also I'm conscious of time and us having a chance to chat afterwards. So in the next session, I'll go through each of those platforms a bit more, of the different types of contents you want to be thinking of, and sort of the optimizing it, sort of, you know, picture sizes and links and stuff like that. So I will share that we'll go through that in next month's session and the session after. But what I'd really recommend is to check out our past First Friday webinars. They are all on the First Fridays page on the Baptist Union, on our page on the Baptist Union website. We've done a couple of other webinars in the past, Mike and I have, and I've done quite a few with Southwest Baptist Association, and we have them all in a playlist on YouTube. So all of that will be emailed with the handouts after we finished recording, but I can share it in the chat for those of you who are here now. But I'd really recommend going and checking those out. There is a lot of kind of pandemic specific content, and that it has changed slightly, but actually a lot of the stuff in terms of basics and getting started with social media will still be helpful and relevant to getting started, regardless of whether we're exclusively online or not. I would also recommend, I had to really select this down because I had a big long list of books and sort of resources to look up, but I would recommend From Social Media to Social Ministry by Nona Jones. It really helps you to understand the significance of it being a ministry, not just sort of some broadcast platform. Meta Church by Dave Adamson. He's a minister in Australia, I think. Don't quote me on that. But he's a brilliant creator, and he's a minister, so he really understands of like actually it being more than just, again, the broadcast, but actually how we sort of build connections with people. Laura Treen has written several books about church online and digital, but that one in particular is really good. And new one that I haven't yet bought, but that is on my Amazon wish list, Church Communications Method and Marketing by Katie Allred. I think it came out end of last year. So I would very much recommend those books, but there are plenty more, but I will send the links for all of these again after we finished. So that's enough of me. I'm going to hand over to Mike to finish up.
Brilliantly well done, Hannah. That was really good, really helpful. So what go from here? What would be perhaps something to some homework or some thoughts to go away? Going back to where I sort of started with, going back and thinking about why you would be joining social media, I think is a great bit of research. Looking at that, there's so much going out there. I mean, that's it. Hannah's just sort of scratched the surface, and you can see there's so much detail there. That's why we're doing this sort of over 3 sessions, sort of over the summer. But in some respects, social media is a bit like going into an enormous DIY store without any reason for going in there. You can sort of arrive at a warehouse type B&Q and think, right, well, I don't quite know why I'm here, but I'll wander around. And you can wander around aimlessly without really thinking about why you're there, and you could do loads of different things, but without any particular purpose. So go there and going, no, we need to do this, or we need to fix this, would be really helpful. And yeah, one of the things that you can go and do is, if you are completely new to this, is to just go in and have a look. And if you didn't actually want to register or go to that far at this stage, do what Hannah's just suggested in terms of YouTube. Go to YouTube and say, show me around Facebook for beginners. Choose your search term, and there will be hundreds of different videos out there for every form of social media platform. So you could go and look at those quite safely without having to sign up. We've got the plenty of reading, as Hannah has already shown there, and yeah, plenty of comment and reflections out there. If you're already involved with social media and you've already got a church page going on to some degree, what you could try and start to do is, if there's anything today that makes you think about, okay, it's helped me to focus a little bit on why we're doing certain posts and what an aim is for a particular post, then what you could try and do is use a particular event. Again, back with Coronation Weekend, is that, yeah, you could say, right, okay, then we would like to, in the day before, or the couple of days before you're doing the event, that you're going to think carefully about the text that you're going to put together, because you're aiming to get this out there into your sort of the local public, the local community groups, and other people that that engage with your page, and you're going to go and put this post out there with an appropriate image or video. And hopefully, and this is where you can go afterwards, and we'll be looking at this in sort of future sessions, but the whole sort of insights or analytics of how a post does is really important. And you can see how many people it's reached, how many people have liked it and shared it. And this is something you can then use as evidence going forward as to how things are working or not working going forward. So if you've already got a presence, be intentional about trying to say, okay, then we're going to really focus on this post, and we want to try to achieve something with it. And then afterwards, you can see whether or not you did that, and you'd be able to ask Hannah and I some thoughts about or reflect with us on the outcome of that. Hannah's already mentioned about sort of having pages and then sort of subgroups, and off the Baptist Together site, we actually have 2 subgroups. One of those is if you are a treasurer. So if you happen to be watching this and you're a treasurer and you're not part of the treasurers group, do look at the support services email, because that always has the link. And then we also have our communications group as well. And that will be on the slides, and it's on the chat for those that are watching today. So I hope that's a helpful starting point. Do get in touch with us with your sort of thoughts and questions, particularly as we then sort of plan in our sort of next 2, which will go into a little bit more depth for each one. So that sort of rounds up today's. We will next see you on Friday the 2nd of June, where we will be looking at a sort of slightly more intermediate level for social media, which will include some of the rabbit holes you can get stuck down, but are important to understand, things like copyright and different design aspects as well. We hope you will join us for that. One thing that we're doing a lot on social media at the moment is our Baptist Assembly. So for those that are not aware, we've got our Baptist Assembly coming up on the 16th to the 18th of June, and you can come and meet Hannah and I in the flesh for that. And we're doing one of the seminars in the afternoon on the Saturday. And for those of you that can remember the old program Ready Steady Cook, we're doing a very similar thing, but we're doing Ready Steady Comms. So we're going to try from scratch to put together some graphics, a website presence and social media all within an hour. And we're going to have some friends from Hub Digital who offer church website solutions to help us with that. So Hannah, myself and Adam will be on that. But do go to the baptistassembly.org.uk to register your ticket. If you can come along, that would be really good. So I think that's us for this time. We will see you in June. Thank you.